Hello and welcome to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by for a visit. Today we take a look at my portfolio holdings that are reporting Q1 earnings for week 22, covering May 26th through May 30th of 2025. The earnings calendar shows Nvidia and HP report on Wednesday, May 28th after the market close. Costco reports on Thursday, May 29th after the bell. For each company, we'll examine the revenue and earning estimates and the options market implied move. We'll review the current price charts, looking at relative strength and momentum indicators. I'll be interested to read your comments for each of these companies as we await their earning report. I would also like to know if you hold any of these companies in your stock portfolio. Let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the earnings worksheet to see if anything surprising happened for companies reporting previously. RTX beat on the top and bottom lines with an earnings implied move of plus or minus 4.84%. RTX was initially down 9.81% following the report, but did recover 2 weeks later. CNC also reported on revenue and earnings, but dropped toward the high end of the earnings implied move of plus or minus 6.9%. CNC recovered by week 2. CNC is a healthcare provider and facing some headwind related to news for the industry overall. UPS beat analyst estimates for revenue and earnings with an earnings implied move of 7%. But was down only 0.37%. Pfizer missed on revenue but beat on earnings with an earnings implied move of plus or minus 4% and rose 3.21% near the high end of the implied move. Microsoft solidly beat estimates with an earnings implied move of near plus or minus 5%. But rose 7.63% following earnings and continuing the drive for 2 weeks, rising to 14.64%. Palantir missed revenue while in line on earnings per share. The earnings implied move was plus or minus 14%. The share price dropped 12.05% following the earnings, but was positive 1 week and 2 weeks later. Q2 holdings beat estimates and stock price rose 13.05%, exceeding the earnings implied move of 10%. Lyft missed both revenue and earnings per share estimates, but rose 28.08%, nearly doubling the earnings implied move of plus or minus 15%, and held most of that gain for 2 weeks later. Rocket Lab beat estimates and dropped 11.21%, near the high end of the earnings implied move of 14%. 2 weeks later, the stock price was 10.04% higher. For the 36 companies reporting, revenue inline or beats were 23 for 64%, while earnings per share inline or beats were 25 for 70%. In total, the earnings per share estimates were $42.70, while reports were $44.40, beating by 3.98%. Before we look at the individual companies, I want to take a couple of minutes to discuss the current market conditions, as this may affect the market responses to earnings. This week, the S&P 500 started the week higher, but then had 4 days of declines and is now nearing the 200-day moving average. In my May 19th Market Trends and Analysis video, I mentioned this as one of 2 possible scenarios for the market near term. For this scenario to play out according to my expectations, I need to see the S&P 500 hold the 200-day moving average, If the S&P fails to hold that support, then we might end up testing the 50-day simple moving average as support. The RSI was in overbought condition and is now declining. We can also see the PPO is losing some momentum. It's still in the positive range, but it is losing momentum, and we are nearing a crossover here, indicating some weakness. The VIX, also known as the Fear Index, has a recent bottom of 17.24 on May the 16th, but it has been in a steady increase, currently sitting at 22.29, which is above the level of 20, which is concerning for near-term price stability. In addition, last Friday, the heat was escalated on the tariff talks, providing a near-term headwind to the market. Nvidia is scheduled to report first quarter earnings on Wednesday, May 28th, after the market close. In the previous quarter, Nvidia reported revenue of $39.33 billion, beating revenue estimates by $1.19 billion. Nvidia reported earnings of 89 cents per share, beating estimates by 4 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $43.2 billion, with earnings per share of 73 cents. Over the last 90 days, 6 analysts raised estimates and 8 analysts lowered estimates. Nvidia meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 91% of the time. Nvidia is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 7.8%. Nvidia has shown some strength since the April 21st low of 95.04 and has risen to as high as 137.4 over that time frame. We are seeing a little bit of a decrease as we move into earnings, but the RSI is positive above the 50 line, losing a little bit of momentum going into the earnings, and the PPO is also showing some decreasing momentum and nearing the signal line, but we're still in positive territory, so overall the momentum is still positive, and we do see pretty positive accumulation since the April 7th low. HP is scheduled to report first quarter earnings on Wednesday, May 28th, after the market close. In the previous quarter, HP reported revenue of $13.5 billion, beating revenue estimates by $151.49 million. HP reported earnings of 74 cents per share, in line with estimates. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $13.13 billion, with earnings per share of 80 cents per share. Over the last 90 days, 1 analyst raised estimates and 10 analysts lowered estimates. HPQ beats or meets analysts' one-year forward estimates 100% of the time. HPQ is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 7%. HP has recovered since the April 7th low, but this past week has shown some price weakness. We are in positive RSI territory above the midpoint, currently sitting at 56.6, but the momentum is declining. The PPO had a signal line crossover on April the 21st and has steadily been increasing, but we do see some momentum weakness here as it's declining, but we're still in positive territory, and it looks like HP has had positive accumulation since early March. Costco is scheduled to report first quarter earnings on Thursday, May 29th after the market close. In the previous quarter, Costco reported revenue of $63.72 billion, beating revenue estimates by $611.59 million. Costco reported earnings of $4.04 per share, missing estimates by 8 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $63.1 billion, with earnings per share of $4.24 per share. Over the last 90 days, 11 analysts raised estimates and 11 analysts lowered estimates. Costco meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 100% of the time. Costco is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 4%. Like the previous two companies, we've seen nice price recovery since the April 7th lows, but we are starting to see a little bit of turnover in prices nearing the 20-day simple moving average. We do have a positive but decreasing RSI showing some relative weakness in the momentum. The PPO is staying somewhat steady, so we have sideways movement here. We are positive, and we've had steady accumulation up until the middle of May, with a slight decrease over the last week or so. That wraps up the review of company earnings for my whole portfolio holdings. If you find this video helpful, I request that you subscribe to the channel for alerts on future videos. I would appreciate a like on the video to help support this channel. Once again, thank you for stopping by today. I wish you a great day, and remember to trade well.